Before the world knew sin, before humanity tasted the forbidden fruit, before the first drop of blood stained the earth, there was a war in heaven. Not a war of flesh and bone, but a war of light against light, angel against angel, brother against brother. And at the center of it all stood one being, radiant, beautiful, perfect in every way, who dared to look upon the throne of God and whisper the most dangerous word in all creation. Why not me? This is the story of the fall, the rebellion that shook the foundations of eternity, the descent of beings once bathed in holy fire, now twisted into creatures of shadow and flame. This is the account of the watchers who abandoned heaven for the daughters of men, the Nephilim who walked as giants upon the earth, the demons who still wage war in the spaces between our prayers, and the ancient adversary whose name alone has become synonymous with evil itself. But here's what they don't tell you in Sunday school. These weren't always monsters. They were family. They sang at the birth of stars. They stood in the presence of the Almighty and knew no fear, no doubt, no desire for anything beyond their sacred duty. So what happened? What could drive beings of pure light to commit cosmic treason? What promise, what lie, what intoxicating vision could be worth an eternity in the lake of fire? The answer will chill you to your core, because the same temptation that destroyed them whispers in the ear of every human being alive today. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. But before he shaped the dust into Adam, before he breathed life into clay, he forged an army, the Malachim, the angels, beings of pure energy and devotion, organized into hierarchies and orders, each with their purpose, each with their rank. The seraphim who burned with 6 wings and voices like thunder. The cherubim who guarded the mysteries of God with flaming swords. The archangels who carried divine commands across the cosmos like lightning splitting the void. And among them, one stood above all others. His name was Lucifer, the light bearer, the morning star, the most beautiful creature ever conceived. Scripture tells us he was the seal of perfection, full of wisdom and flawless in beauty. He walked among the stones of fire. He was anointed as a guardian cherub, positioned at the very mountain of God. His voice led the heavenly chorus. When he sang, galaxies trembled with joy. But perfection, it seems, has a dark twin, pride. Somewhere in the endless ages before time began, something shifted in Lucifer's heart. The book of Isaiah gives us a glimpse into that terrible moment. How you have fallen from heaven, O morning star, son of the dawn. You said in your heart, I will ascend to the heavens. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. I will sit enthroned on the Mount of Assembly, on the utmost heights of Mount Zaphon. I will ascend above the tops of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. 5 declarations. 5 I wills that shattered eternity. It wasn't enough to serve. It wasn't enough to be second. Lucifer looked at the throne of God and decided he deserved it more. And here's the truly terrifying part. He wasn't alone in that thought. The book of Revelation tells us that when Lucifer fell, he took 1/3 of the stars of heaven with him. 1/3. Let that sink in. Out of the countless millions, perhaps billions of angels, 1/3 chose rebellion over obedience. 1/3 looked at their creator and said, no, this wasn't a small conspiracy. This was a cosmic civil war. Michael the archangel led the loyal forces. The battle that followed defies human comprehension. Angels, beings of pure light and power, clashing in a war that spanned dimensions we can't even perceive. The prophet Daniel speaks of spiritual battles that lasted weeks in our time. Imagine what days or years might mean in the eternal realm. But in the end, there was only one possible outcome. Lucifer and his followers were cast down like lightning from heaven, hurled to the earth and the spaces beneath it, their glory stripped away, their light extinguished. They became the fallen. And their leader took a new name, Satan, the adversary. But the story doesn't end with a simple defeat. Because fallen angels don't just disappear into the void. They adapt. They plot. They wait for their moment to strike back at the God who cast them out. And they found their opportunity in a garden with a woman and a tree. You know the story. The serpent, the fruit, the fall of man. But what you might not know is this. Satan's revenge wasn't random. It was surgical. God had created humanity in his own image, something he had never done with the angels. Humans were loved in a way the angels never were, promised a glory that even the highest seraphim could never attain, and that burned in Satan's heart like acid. So he destroyed what God loved most. He corrupted the image bearers. He poisoned the paradise. He proved that these beloved creations were just as fallible, just as rebellious, just as unworthy as he was, and for a moment, it seemed like he had won. But the fallen angels weren't finished, because there were others, angels who hadn't initially joined Lucifer's rebellion, but who watched the daughters of men and felt a different kind of temptation stirring in their ancient hearts. The book of Enoch and the book of Genesis both reference them. The Watchers, the sons of God who saw that the daughters of men were beautiful and made a choice that would damn them forever. 200 angels, led by one called Azazel, descended to Mount Hermon and made a pact. They would abandon their posts in heaven, take human form, and claim wives from among mankind. The book of Enoch describes their leader Simjaza gathering them together and saying, "I fear you will not agree to this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of a great sin." But they all swore an oath together, binding themselves to mutual destruction. They knew it was forbidden. They knew it was a one-way ticket to damnation. They did it anyway. What followed was an abomination that would reshape the world. The Watchers didn't just marry human women, they bred with them. And their offspring were the Nephilim, the giants, beings of impossible size and strength. Genesis tells us, there were giants in the earth in those days, mighty men which were of old, men of renown. But it doesn't tell you what these creatures did. It doesn't describe the terror they unleashed. The book of Enoch pulls back the curtain. The Nephilim consumed everything in their path. They devoured all the resources of mankind until humans had nothing left to give. Then they turned on humanity itself, consuming flesh, drinking blood, becoming the monsters of every ancient myth and nightmare. The world descended into chaos. Violence filled the earth. Every thought in the human heart became only evil continually. And the Watchers, these fallen angels, taught forbidden knowledge to their human lovers. Sorcery, astrology, the art of making weapons, the use of cosmetics and jewelry for seduction, the roots and herbs for spells and enchantments. They gave humanity the tools of its own destruction. God looked down at what his creation had become, and he grieved. The book of Genesis tells us he regretted making man. The corruption was total. The bloodline of humanity was polluted. The angels had violated the boundaries between heaven and earth, between spirit and flesh, between holy and profane. Something had to be done. Something absolute. The flood. Noah's Ark isn't a children's story about cute animals and rainbows. It's the account of a divine genocide, a planetary reset. God didn't just destroy the wicked. He wiped the slate clean, erasing the Nephilim, the corrupted bloodlines, the entire antediluvian civilization in one apocalyptic deluge. Only 8 humans survived. Only one family deemed righteous enough to carry the human race forward. But what happened to the Watchers? What happened to the fallen angels who had caused all of this? They couldn't drown. They couldn't die. Instead, God assigned them a fate worse than death. According to both 2 Peter and Jude, these angels were bound in chains of darkness, cast into pits of gloom, reserved for judgment until the end of days. Tartarus, a prison beneath the deepest depths, where they wait in torment for their final sentence. And their children, the Nephilim? The book of Enoch describes their spirits as demons, disembodied entities trapped between heaven and hell, neither fully material nor fully spiritual, wandering the earth seeking bodies to inhabit, thirsting for the physical existence they lost when their hybrid bodies were destroyed. They became the demons that plague humanity to this day, the unclean spirits, the powers and principalities, the forces of darkness that operate in the invisible realm, whispering lies, orchestrating destruction, feeding on human suffering. This is why Jesus spent so much of his ministry casting out demons. This is why Paul wrote about wrestling not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. The war didn't end with the flood. It just changed battlefields. Fast forward through millennia. The demons adapted. Satan rebuilt his kingdom in the ruins of the old world. He became the prince of the power of the air, the god of this age, the ruler of a fallen creation still groaning under the weight of the curse. He established principalities, territorial spirits ruling over nations and peoples. He organized hierarchies of demons just as heaven had hierarchies of angels. And he waited for his next opportunity to strike at God. That opportunity came in the form of a baby born in Bethlehem. Because here's the ultimate twist in this ancient war. God didn't abandon humanity after the fall. He promised a redeemer, a seed of the woman who would crush the serpent's head. Satan spent thousands of years trying to prevent that prophecy from coming true. He corrupted bloodlines. He orchestrated genocides. He inspired Pharaoh to kill the Hebrew children and Herod to slaughter the innocents. But he failed. The Messiah arrived. And when Satan came to tempt Jesus in the wilderness, offering him all the kingdoms of the world in exchange for worship, he was repeating his original sin, trying to usurp the throne through shortcuts and compromise. But this time, he faced not a man, but God in flesh. And he lost. Again. The cross should have been Satan's greatest victory, the death of the promised Redeemer. But it became his ultimate defeat. Because through death, Jesus destroyed him who had the power of death, the devil himself. Through resurrection, Jesus proved that death is not the end. And through ascension, Jesus reclaimed the authority that Adam had surrendered in the garden. Now the endgame unfolds. The book of Revelation describes the final act of this cosmic drama. Satan, knowing his time is short, unleashes hell on earth. One last desperate gamble to drag as many souls into destruction as he can. The mark of the beast. The rise of the Antichrist. The false prophet. A counterfeit trinity designed to mock and mirror the true God. It will be the greatest deception in human history, so convincing that even the elect would be deceived if that were possible. But the outcome is already written. Michael and his angels will fight Satan and his demons one final time. The dragon will be cast down to earth. And ultimately, he and all the fallen angels, all the demons, all the corrupted souls who rejected redemption will be thrown into the lake of fire, eternal separation from God, conscious torment without end, the second death from which there is no resurrection. This is the complete biblical account. From the war in heaven to the final judgment, from the light-bearer's fall to the dragon's doom. A story spanning eternity, played out across the stage of human history, with each of us caught in the middle of a conflict we didn't start but must choose sides in nonetheless. The fallen angels made their choice. The demons made theirs. Satan made his long before we were born. Now the question hangs in the air like smoke from ancient altars. What will you choose? Because there is no neutral ground in a cosmic war. There is no Switzerland in spiritual battle. You are either being redeemed or you're being recruited by the other side. And here's the terrifying truth they don't want you to know. The same whisper that destroyed Lucifer. You can be like God. Still echoes through every temptation, every prideful thought, every moment you put yourself on the throne of your own life. The war isn't over. It just moved from heaven to your heart. And the fallen angels who started this whole catastrophe, they're still here, still watching, still whispering, still waiting for you to make the same